ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the July 27th edition of Beyond the Headlines. My name is Colin Dowe, and I'm so very happy, as I always am, to have you join us for another episode of Beyond the Headlines. So whether you're looking on GBN television, listening on GBN radio, or logged on to any of our social media platforms, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm trusting that you are still energized and can make the 90-minute program with us. We looked at the turnout in St. Andrew over the semi-final weekend, and Thursday night had loads of people. Friday night beat back Thursday night, and I was pleasantly surprised to look at the numbers yesterday for the Calypso semi-finals. So if you're one of those, on behalf of Carnival lovers, thank you very much for the support that you demonstrated for the artists, groovy artists, power soca artists, Calypsonians, by turning out. Don't let it cut off now. We have 2 more weeks to go. Continue showing your support and your loyalty for the art form and the artists. This evening we're going to step away from Carnival just a little bit, and we're addressing education. You may have been aware that recently C.X.C announced some adjustments to the manner in which they are going to be making assessments of the C.S.C examinations for fifth formers and the CAPE examinations for the folks who are at TAM-CC. So we're going to delve into what that means, what is being done, why it's being done, and what that means. And with us this evening in studio, we have the Chief Education Officer from the Ministry of Education, Dr. Dianne Abel-Jeffrey. Dr. Abel-Jeffrey, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Dowe, and thank you for that warm welcome. And I also say good evening to our viewing audience throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and of course the region, because we are speaking of a regional issue, and I'm sure that regional viewers are also tuned in to GBN. You have already done your pitch in terms of the carnival, so we're going to go straight into the education, I suppose, which I am here for. So I thank you once again for that warm welcome.
You know, viewers and listeners, I'm chuckling because one of the people that I was surprised had the energy to show up tonight was Dr. Abel-Jeffrey, right? She's one of those that is always present, and 2026 was no different. So I'm happy that you are able to make it unenergized.
Oh yes, yes, I have to.
We are expecting as well the former Registrar of C.X.C, Dr. Didacus, Jules, to join us via Zoom from St. Lucia. So we are expecting that he will join us sometime during the course of the program, and certainly looking forward to his contributions as well. But Dr. Abel-Jeffrey, as we kick off, if you can just situate us in what was this announcement made in broad strokes by C.X.C recently?
Okay, so C.X.C has made this announcement that there will be changes to the format of assessments that is being done currently at the C.S.C and CAPE examinations. Primarily, the SBAs will be, some of them would be removed from the subject, from certain subject areas. Of course, we must highlight that it is not all of the subject areas, so it is not a total removal of SBAs. It's a partial removal of SBAs, and those areas that are the subject areas that where the SBAs are removed will be replaced by the paper 032. So this is something that we have to get clearly, because a lot of people are still thinking that SBA is removed totally, and that's not the case.
Okay.
It's for some of the exams. And why? There are some subject areas where assessments cannot be properly facilitated through paper examinations alone. We would need to test other competencies that cannot be tested through the written exams alone. So there is a need for the practical aspect, which will continue in those subject areas.
Okay. If we are to take a step back and just you're not the C.X.C employee. I get that. But just in terms of broad strokes, what C.X.C means for our region. C.X.C was constituted in 1972. If my memory serves me correctly, the first set of examinations they rolled out would have been 5 years later or 7 years later in 1979, and have built a portfolio of assessing across the Caribbean. What does, in your mind, what does C.X.C mean for the region?
Well, C.X.C is a well-respected regional examination body that unifies our region in terms of assessments. And this is very important for us as a region to identify together and to ensure that our assessments are of a standard, of a high quality, that it can be trusted. It also brings together the region in terms of hearing discussions and the voices of the different regional bodies, not just the islands, but also there's the inclusion of other organizations within the region that would contribute to the discussions that will be held within C.X.C so that we can develop the product for the region. So C.X.C is a very important institution in our region, and well respected. How
would you respond? Because when I think of C.X.C, I see it as the equalizer, as it were, because two individuals can go to two different schools, and we don't know if the person placing first in that school with 85% has equal mastery of the content as the person placing first in the next school. But when everybody does the same C.C.C exams, for example, a 1 is a 1 is a 1, whether you're in Jamaica, in Belize, or in one of the Dutch territories.
Of course, that is very important. As I said, unified, but we also have to think, in spite of that, that there will be some variations also in terms of conditions, but C.X.C is that body that brings us as close as possible to having that unison in terms of the assessment conditions for our examination. So you are very correct that it is the equalizer for our region, and it's the best that we can get at this time. So I applaud C.X.C for that, and of course we have to continue the discussions, and we have to continue to support what is ours.
Right. So if I may, we probably look at a North American system, and we know SATs. So regardless of which high school you've been to, in which part of the US, for example, the students do SATs before moving on to university. So basically C.C.C is our SATs, you know, in terms of that standardized examination that can bring confidence to whoever the consumer is, wherever they are. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So in establishing this, I know that there have been, by way of a CARICOM mandate, conversations of the ideal CARICOM citizen. There is talk now from government Vision 75, and part of that conversation is who is the ideal Grenadian citizen? Who are we? Or who are we aspiring to become? And that ought to be at age 10, at age 16, etc. How, in your mind, does C.X.C assessments, or are the C.X.C assessments assisting us in developing this ideal Grenadian, this ideal Caribbean citizen?
So I must say that no examination or no assessment can fully develop those qualities. However, C.X.C is playing a critical role in terms of the assessments, because C.X.C is looking for things like innovation, looking for things like critical thinking, the ability to communicate, responsible use of technology, including the AI that we have to speak so much of, developing the human capital. But we also have to recognize that assessments alone cannot produce the ideal citizen. So we cannot produce an ideal Grenadian citizen through assessments alone, but assessments will play an integral role. We have to ensure that when we teach, we do not teach to pass exams. We teach for life. And our teachers are of that understanding. Our schools, our principals, our entire education system believes that we must teach our children for life. And we continue to do that. So in spite of whatever assessments that we're going to do, so it doesn't matter whether the assessment is SBA based or just written paper, written and paper 032, written and SBA. It does not matter. We will continue to progress towards developing certain qualities in our students, in our learners, so that they are able to go out into the world and function effectively and produce high quality products. Think critically, be able to communicate effectively, be able to function in the workplace, and ensure that production is of a high level, and that we are able to continue to provide resources that are needed to build our nation and to build our region.
Okay. What type of adjustments, if any, do we need to make to accomplish this? And I ask this from the standpoint that moons ago, when I was in secondary school, there were probably 10, 11, not more than 12 subjects to be assessed. In 2026, we have people doing 20-something subjects. Last time I checked, there's still 24 hours in a day. And the contact period that teachers have still remains. In other words, the school day has not lengthened. How do we accomplish teaching to the curriculum for the C.S.C examinations and still incorporating that teaching for life philosophy to create that ideal Grenadian?
Okay, so that's where experiential teaching, learning, and so on comes in. And of course, when we teach the different subjects, if we think about it carefully, we would recognize that the subjects are all connected with each other. So maybe the 10 before are actually those 20 plus or 30 plus that are now being offered. So they're still able to connect and have those, and inside of the curriculum, it's not just what is inside the curriculum, but also all of the values that the teachers are going to be imparting to the students. All of the co-curricular activities that the students are involved in, which are important and which we must see as important and just as important as the curriculum, the mainstream curriculum that we focus on quite a lot. And if we do not begin to see the importance of those other areas, then we would always have that issue of saying that the curriculum is too broad and it's not giving us enough time to focus on the other areas that need to be focused on, so that we can build in the qualities that we need to build into our learners. But it's possible if we approach it in this way, where we see everything that is being done in life has to be reflected also in our curriculum, whether it's in the core curriculum, whether it's in the mainstream curriculum, whether it's in the extracurricular activities that we take part in.
Okay. If I'm to, and I'm hoping this is an easy example, because I'm trying to figure out how are teachers trained to embrace this connectivity that you're referencing in order to satisfy the demands of the content of the syllabi for C.S.C, the C.X.C examinations, and at the same time train a young mind to be a good Grenadian. So if we're to take social studies, and I'm hopeful that this is an easy example, how can a teacher teach to the syllabus of social studies, but still incorporate those principles that you are referencing?
Using real life experiences, allowing the students to role play. You present scenarios, allowing the students to do their presentations, allowing the students to do projects, portfolios, all of those things, to go into the society and actually reenact things that are part of life. So they're not just relying on the book, on the information in the book, but they're actually living those experiences through their projects, their role play, their scenarios, their presentations, their portfolios that they build, and all of that.
And would you suggest that this type of experiential learning actually reinforces memory, and we may have stronger students coming out as opposed to just regurgitating?
Of course, and that is important. We do not want our students to just concentrate on getting let's say a perfect score in SB, a perfect score, so that at the end you get a perfect grade 1. Well, let's give it at grade 1.
Right.
But we want our students to be able to have the knowledge and the skills that they need to function. And if we give them the opportunity to do that and not see the end product as the passing of the exam only, because the passing of the exam is important, but it should not be seen as the only end. It should be a part of the end. The end should be, can I function effectively? When I go out into the world of work, will I be able to work to satisfy, to raise productivity? Will I be able to think critically to resolve issues? Will I be able to resolve the problems that are confronting me when I am in the world of work? So the students must be given the opportunities to practice those in their learning, so that when they get out there, they can do that.
Okay.
And I believe, that this will also be, because we continue, not because the SBAs would be removed for some subject areas, but this will be catered for. Or we will continue to cater for that in our curriculum, because we would continue to encourage our teachers to continue to give the students those opportunities to build their critical thinking skills, to be able to reason out problems, to be able to resolve those problems, to give them the opportunities to come up with their own ideas of things and to present their own ideas of things.
And I must ask, because I'm with you 100%, and that is our ideal situation. How are we going about equipping the teachers now to be able to deliver on this, recognizing that there is no pre-service training in Grenada? So my TAM-CC graduate lands first job and has first formers and second formers in front of them. How do we go about incorporating that mindset and getting them the skills to be able to deliver?
Okay, so we have been proactive in terms of, maybe people may think that we're not moving as fast as we should, but we are not reacting to what is happening now. In fact, we have planned to increase training for our teachers, and we have started actually. So even as we got the announcement, we were able to say some of the things that we have been doing already. And teacher training, professional development, increase in terms of training at the Teachers College, opportunities to continue in service training. All of those things are ways in which we cater to develop the teachers so that they are able to impart the knowledge and the skills that they have to our students.
Okay, all right. And if I am to just inquire, is there... But there is some developmental work that is taking place. Is this during the term? Again, I'm very conscious of the 24 hours still remains in the day, and the pressure that the teachers are under, because quite often they're more than teachers. So is there more, these are activities that will take place, let's say, prior to the start of term? How is it built in?
Okay, so we build it in different, at different times. So Now, for example, we have our Summer Institute where we address some of those issues. We even did some AI education. We did. We had training for the CPEA rollout. The not CPEA, but we did CPEA too. But the C.X.C. changes to the SBA. We train teachers in areas where we see a need. So we look at the areas. We look at our priority in education. We look at where there are gaps. We see where there is need for training, and we execute in our summer program, our summer institute. But it's not a one-off, so we will continue into the term. So there are different times when teachers in different subject areas will be pulled out, maybe a day, to continue some training. And then this works well because as they learn, they teach.
Back in the classroom.
Back in the classroom.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Viewers and listeners, we now have Dr. Didacus Jules, no stranger to Grenada or Grenadians, former registrar of C.X.C, on with us. Dr. Jules, welcome. You're muted.
Thank you very much, Colin. First of all, my sincere apologies for logging in late. It's been an incredibly busy day at OECS, as you can imagine.
Not a problem at all. We certainly appreciate your taking the time to join us and share on your own expertise as it relates to your knowledge of C.X.C. Quite often we see C.X.C as an examination unit. So as former registrar, I'm deliberately going to start off philosophically, so for you to share with us. What would you say is the mission of C.X.C?
Well, there's a famous psychometrician, Hansen, who said that people are not so much shaped by exams as described by exams as shaped by them. And I think in essence, C.X.C is one of the most outstanding pillars of educational decolonization in the Caribbean. You recall that prior to C.X.C, it was all GCE. We were part of the British Empire, and everything was dictated, the standards, the content dictated by the UK. C.X.C represented a radical departure from that, and it was essentially Caribbean educators and psychometricians, most notable of whom was Dr. Desmond Brooms and Stafford Griffith from Guyana, who had set up that infrastructure. So I think we have a serious responsibility to preserve C.X.C, ensure that it is modernized as times develop, but to not to lose some of the critical essence of what C.X.C is supposed to represent. And this SBA issue, I think, has brought to the fore the challenge that we face in this period of time. Let me say, first of all, that there's absolutely no question about the impact of AI in examinations and how that can be used to, literally cheat on examinations. However, the artificial intelligence is not just we should not be seeing it just as a problem, but see it also as an opportunity, because this is where the world is going. It is now an inescapable fact of life. And rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think we need to, first of all, understand what the SBAs were intended to do. Remember that when the SBA construct is almost as old as C.X.C itself. It's been part of the council's exams from the very first sitting. And the agreement that was signed in 1972 by 15 Caribbean governments, it stated very plainly that school-based assessment of SBA has been part of the exam structure from the very first examination in 1979. And by 1980, the council had regulations governing receipt candidates in SBA subjects. So the SBA is almost as old as the C.X.C itself. Mm-hmm. Now, in the late 70s, most national school leaving certifications around the world rested largely, almost entirely, on terminal written examinations. So by building continuous teacher-led, externally moderated assessment into a high-stakes regional exam from day one, C.X.C actually was among the earliest examination bodies in the world to treat school-based assessment as a core mandatory component of certification rather than an experiment at the margins. So it has generally been accepted as an excellent form of assessment, and many other international boards have since followed. In fact, it's interesting that when you talk about well-recognized bodies, you know, it wasn't until C.X.C started SBAs in 1979. The International Baccalaureate was from 1968, but they were the one international pair who involved in the early introductions. In 1988, the UK GCSC adopted SBAs as a component. New Zealand did it in 2002, Singapore in mid-2000s, Hong Kong in 2007, and Australia has had some combination of that for some time. So what is critical here is to ask ourselves if there's a thinking that students are using SBAs to cheat using artificial intelligence to cheat in the SBA.
Let me ask you this, Didacus. What is the problem that we're attempting to solve? Because we heard the announcement that SBAs are going to be eliminated from a number of subject areas, and the alternative paper be introduced. What are we attempting to solve for? Let me just table that.
Well, I think that's a question best asked of C.X.C because I'm not quite sure if the attempt is to try to remove the influence of artificial intelligence in the work of students proposed to the examination board. I think that is an attempt doomed to failure. And more importantly, we have to ask ourselves, what is the importance of the SBA and how can the SBA be reinvented or reorganized in order to meet the challenges that the AI poses to it? And in fact, the solution being proposed, I do not think, in all honesty, is going to solve that problem. Because by giving students, the topic way in advance that they will be allowed to research, prepare a paper, come into an examinations room to be questioned by a panel, there's nothing preventing them from using AI to prepare, to do all of that preparation. And a bright student can effectively regurgitate and get top marks.
So is it one of preventing AI, and I'm going back to what we are attempting to solve for, is it should the mission be attempting to prevent AI, or is it to ensure academic integrity? And I make a distinction between the two, and what should be the focus of our efforts?
Well, let's put it this way. First of all, prevention of AI is, at this stage, historically, virtually impossible. Because whether you like it or not, people are going to use AI. Now, given the inevitability of AI and its increasing use in everyday life, the challenge now is to ask oneself, how can you ensure authentic assessment using the SBA model? So how now does the SBA need to be reinvented in order to address that question? And there are several ways in which you can do it. Note that C.X.C is saying that they will keep the SBAs for the so-called technical subjects, but for the more so-called academic subjects, they will use a different modality, a third examination paper. Now, I would argue that it is precisely for the so-called academic subjects that one would need to ensure that the SBA is in fact utilized but modernized so that it meets head-on the challenges of AI, and it can do so by challenging students to do something really practical for their SBAs. So in English, for example, it may be possible to undertake, let's say, principles of accounts, students doing principles of accounts as an SBS, as a C.X.C. subject. It may be possible to combine mathematics and principles of accounts by having the student in their community identify a young entrepreneur, an older person who, a small entrepreneur who has a business but does not have a proper accounting system in their business, to sit with that person, interview them to see what are the challenges that they face from an accounting perspective. All of that can be documented, even using some of the modern technologies like videotaping on their phone or so, some of that interaction. They can then help design a system that would assist that small business person to get their accounts in order, have a testimonial from that person, so you're involving the community in the process of assessing the value of what the student is producing for you based on the knowledge of the subject. You know,
right.
I mean, in virtually every area, there are things that can be done in that way that would really cause students to, apply the knowledge in the subject. And in fact, it even opens the door for interdisciplinary SBAs. So you can combine an SBA in history with something in creative arts, visual arts, by having students, for example, look at a historical site and design props and sets that can be used to enhance the value and the attractiveness of the historical site, while doing more research about the history of the site itself. Even use some AI to design a video showing activities happening at that site, at that historical site, whether it's a battle or whatever it is. So there are many ways in which this can be done, and in fact takes the SBA to a whole different level than the fear that is now driving this whole process.
All right, thank you very much. It's time for our first break, viewers and listeners. So we'll take the break, and we'll be back with Dr. Didacus Jules and Dr. Dianne Abel-Jeffrey. See you shortly.
We search for brilliance, looking far, asking wide, not realizing it's been right here all along. Makers, storytellers, dreamers shaping color, rhythm, and vision into something only Grenadians can create. But for too long, we've been working in the dark, hidden, overlooked, out of reach. Until now, Dowe's Creative Directory brings everyone, creatives, businesses, and the community into one connected space. Find the artist who understands your vision, the jeweler whose craft speaks for itself, the storyteller and musician whose work reflects who we are. Visit us at creativeaffairs.gov.gd. Your next collaboration is only one search away.
Are you looking for a reliable, affordable, and customer-friendly pharmacy? Look no further than Hills and Valley Pharmacy, the nation's leading healthcare products and services provider. We are committed to serving you at convenient locations. Find an extensive and affordable selection of prescription and over-the-counter drugs and medical supplies at Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, Jubilee Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, near the bus terminal, and Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George. Our committed team is always available to offer valuable assistance for managing your health and wellness. Discover the additional benefits of our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street and our Medcare Center on Grenville Street, where we provide in-house physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctor consultations, and eye care services. Our commitment is to satisfy all your healthcare needs, including competitive prices, loyalty rewards, and special discounts for seniors. Contact us at 435-6904 and WhatsApp 535-4734. Choose Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Remember, your health is our business.
Sunrise Diagnostic Center is the place to visit for your medical laboratory test, ultrasound, X-ray, mammogram, ECG, and ultrasound guided and bone density test. Also available are COVID PCR and antigen tests. Most results are available within 24 hours. Sunrise Diagnostic Center is located at number 9 NS Building, Melville Street, St. George's, with sub-offices in Grand Anse, Wall Street, and Grenville, St. Andrew. Visit Sunrise Diagnostic Center today at any of their offices or call 440-3709 or cell phone 415-9522. Are you longing to taste authentic, flavorful dishes from Thailand? Then look no further. Konthai, the newest restaurant located at the back of Galleria Mall top floor, is the place to satisfy your taste buds for Thai dishes that are well seasoned with fresh local spices. They offer a great selection of sumptuous dishes that will tantalize your taste buds. Visit Konthai today because the food is good, the ambiance is great, and the staff friendly. Available on Bites and Yogo Grenada. For more information, call 456-0074 or visit konthaigrenada.com or stop by the new Galleria Mall, Grand Anse, St. George. I'll meet you there.
The Grenville Cooperative Credit Union introduces its new digital platform, managing your finances at any time from anywhere.
As a part-time student, balancing work and studies can be a real challenge. But with GCCU's digital app, these worries are no more. My parents can now remotely transfer funds to my account and I can check my balance at any time, giving me the freedom to achieve my goals.
My days can be long and tedious. With this app, I can ensure my loan is paid on time, transfer funds to someone else's account, and check my balances. I don't have to rush to do business during my lunch hour or after work anymore.
With this app, I can request checks to pay my suppliers, letters for my business transactions. I don't have to leave my farm to go stand in line.
The Grenville Credit Union digital platform. It's convenient and secure banking right at your fingertips. Download the app today from the Play Store or App Store or call 442-8602, 459-4325 or 416-8467 for further information.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners. Of course, we're talking about C.X.C and the revisions to the assessment. Dan, you heard Didacus, and speaking that we probably, the approach ought to have been, or could have been, one, interdisciplinary, and making it more project-based, so getting the students to get their hands dirty, involved with community, have that documented, which would be a more rich experience than terminating the SBAs in some subjects.
Okay,
your thoughts?
So I've heard it, and I recall that I've read that Dr. Jules' position paper, and I take the opportunity to say good evening to Dr. Jules at the same time. And what I must say, though, is that assessments evolve. And we have to be prepared, and as a ministry, we are prepared to work with those evolutions. We know that we have to contribute to the discussions, and we will continue to contribute to the discussions. We will continue to support our teachers so that whatever changes, because we know that changes are inevitable, and given the constraints that we have at this time, C.X.C thinks it's best to take this approach to maintain the integrity, the credibility, and the effectiveness of the exams. And it may not be, well, that's not the only thing that could have been done, but in the context of this, the present situation, it is the best thing that can be done at this time, in our opinion. So we are supportive of those changes. We must also continue to underscore that because the SBA is no more in certain subject areas, it doesn't mean that the students cannot or should not get the opportunity to do project-based activities. They can and they should, and we encourage our teachers, and we will continue to support our teachers and our schools to continue to ensure that the students are given projects.
Would that encouragement work if assessments shapes the individual and the behavior?
And that is where we have to change mindset, because as I said in the beginning, it should not be about assessments only. Assessments should not be the only endpoint that we're looking forward to. We are looking at developing learners that can be effective citizens in our region, in Grenada and in our region, internationally also. And if we focus only on assessments, then we will always not be achieving that objective.
Okay.
So we have to think, where do we want, or what kind of citizen we want to see in the end, and continue to build that citizen.
Okay. Didacus, in reading the publication by C.X.C, they said they engaged over 2,400 educators across the 21 territories, and there was over 75% support for these changes. You seem to be of a different opinion. Why that overwhelming support? And I'm hearing Dianne saying she prefaced her support by saying, at this time, based on the resources we have, this is the response that they're supportive of. How do you respond to that?
Well, very frankly, I think people sometimes believe that C.X.C is the final authority on these matters. And as a consequence, they will tend to go along with what they believe is a well-grounded... Can you hear me?
Go ahead. We got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying they will tend to go along with what is a well-grounded argument. But we have to ask ourselves some very fundamental questions. I said earlier that the times in which we live are very different times, and the solutions that may have worked in the past cannot work in the future. And there is, I find, among educators sometimes a sort of fixed mindset about certain things that really need to be open to question. I heard Dianne talking about the type of student we want to produce. If we are serious about producing that type of student, then assessment that is still going back to the old modes of, another paper exam is not going to be it. What we need is, and you talk to employers and so on who tell you about students who come, they may have a 1 in accounts or something, but they're not able to, what they've done is cram the material well and be able to reproduce it in an exam. And so we need people who are able to think critically, apply knowledge judiciously, think creatively, work through problems, a sort of problem-solving mode. That is what an examination board is supposed to do. You can't just fall back into your traditional mode that, okay, you're so concerned about the integrity of the exam, so-called, by making it just a rigid construct. And I think I'm not saying that the concern is an unreal concern. I'm saying simply that insufficient thought has been given to the process by which this thing can be worked through. And there are 5 principles that I have outlined and researched that I think ought to be applied in the redesign of the SBA.
Okay. One of the concerns, if we're going to look at integrity, and C.X.C is responsible for a number of examinations. So the RENR for licensing of registered nurses, the CPA, which is the primary school exit exam, along with the C.C.C, leaving Form 5, and the CAPE at the end of 6th form or community college. Who does, from your experience, who does those SBAs? Are these the work product of the students, or are we seeing teachers and parents heavily involved in the production of those papers, which of course would lend to the final result of the student?
Well, in the past, they may have been involved as well, but again, it's about the authenticity of the process. Okay, before AI, it may have been possible that some parents who pay close attention to their children's work would have played some role. At worst, the role may have been helping to actually prepare the SBA. At best, it may be just providing critical feedback and guidance so that the student comes up with a viable SBA. So these problems are always there, but as I insist, the challenge is not getting rid of the SBA by returning to another paper-based mode or some combination of assessment that ditches really the essence of what the SBA is supposed to be.
Okay. Dianne, the measures are not applicable, according to C.X.C, to the practical subjects. How do we define the practical subjects? And I'm deliberately asking this question. How has C.X.C gone about, how has C.X.C gone about defining the practical subjects?
So, as I said, I'm representing the Ministry of Education, so I cannot give you fully what C.X.C's full thought process is. But if we analyze it, we would see that there are some traditional subjects like the science-based subjects and so that they've considered from the implementation of SBAs. Those were considered to be practical subjects. And there are those that are more paper-based, like the English and the French and the Spanish and so on, because up to today there is no SBA component for subjects like French and Spanish, and it's only in recent years we had SBAs for mathematics and English.
But there was a practical component to French and Spanish. There's oral. There's oral,
and that will continue. So there is still the opportunity. So I agree with Didacus that we can look at, and we have to continue the discussion. We must continue the discussion, and each ministry has to continue to lend its voice, because we have to find alternative ways of assessments. But I maintain that at this point, in order to maintain the integrity, the credibility, and so on of the exams, it is best that we retract as of now, and we're not in a position to implement because it would take some time to put things in place in terms of, because we're speaking about throughout the region.
But if I'm to push back here a little bit, does C.X.C have a tool by which it can determine the percentage of AI that is used in a submitted paper?
Again, I cannot say for sure because I am not, I was not privy to that.
But there are such tools.
Yeah, there are tools.
So in terms of protecting the integrity of an examination, could not the implementation, utilization, and publication of the implementation, utilization of such a tool be a safeguard against the abuse of AI, as opposed to doing away with the SBAs?
So that's a consideration also, but of course we have to think about, is C.X.C in the position now, because these tools are not free. There may be a measure of some assessment that can be done with a free tool, but in order to get a full-fledged, it's not free. So these are things that have to be put into a proper plan, proper framework in order to implement.
Let me just ask a similar question to what I asked Didacus in terms of what is the extent of plagiarism in the SBAs? And I use plagiarism whether it is submitting AI work that is not yours, or help you, or do it for you, or mommy did it for you. To what extent do you believe this exists?
We've heard reports of this happening, we do not have specific data to say that this percentage is happening. But based on what C.X.C. is, the feedback that C.X.C. is giving is that they have been detecting quite a lot of the AI being used without acknowledging the AI. There was an attempt to have a framework developed and have different territories developing the in-country policy and implementing those policies to safeguard against that. At this point, that hasn't proven to be effective. So that's why C.X.C. speaks about effectiveness also. So hence the reason C.X.C. believes that at this point we cannot continue going down that road of having open AI use without any checks and balances in place. And if we're not able to put in the effective checks and balances at this time, then let us do an alternative.
Didacus, we see a number of subjects listed for what is referred to as paper 032, and it's guarded to be rolled out in CAPE next year and over a 2-year span in C.S.C. And I go back to the question is, what is a practical subject? And I say this because in looking at it, I'm seeing information technology being subjected to a paper 032 and not practical, and hence SBA based. How do you respond to that?
You know, at the root of all the arguments I'm hearing are some of the old false dichotomies. One of my pet peeves with traditional education thinking is that notion of their so-called academic and non-academic subjects, because that also translates into there are students who are academically minded and those who are not academically minded. Nobody is born academically minded or not academically minded. And I think the problem here is one of pedagogy, right? There are many styles of learning, how we teach students, how they grapple with the material, how they internalize it. Most importantly, how they are encouraged to think critically about the information being presented is what determines the final outcome. So, and you know, the arguments about at this time, it's like almost a caving in. Prior to artificial intelligence, the same degree of plagiarism, if you want to call it that, or parents writing SBAs for students or other people writing SBAs for them would have existed. Now that does not excuse the fact that this is happening. I think the challenge for us is to ensure that we find ways of guaranteeing that the SBA is an authentic product that challenges the student to apply the knowledge of the subject, whether it is a so-called academic subject or a TVET subject. And I find it odd that even a subject like what you just cited there, computer science would be considered one of those that would not be subject to SBA. Let me just explain some of the principles I think ought to be brought to this challenge. In the first instance, it's about reframing the problem, right? So the idea is to, as a general principle, you should localize and personalize the work of the SBA. So you tie the task to a specific place, a community, a data set, or some personal experience that the student must engage with directly, right? So, you know, if you're talking about AI, generic prompts are the home turf of thing, the sugar estate in your parish is not. So, you know, what does the AI know about the sugar estate in your parish? If anything, it will give you a false proposition because it will tell you a sugar estate in cul-de-sac, not knowing that your parish is Belmont or some, you know, or Grove. Then assessing the process, not only the product, is what is critical. And traditional exams are all about product, right? Not about the process. So you could require a visible record of the work, as I suggested earlier, a logbook, drafts, photographs, interview notes, version history. So the journey is part of the grade, and it cannot be reverse engineered after the fact. Then you add a human checkpoint, a short oral defense, or what some countries call a viva, even 5 to 10 minutes, is the single most powerful authenticity check that's available, because a student who did the work can talk about it, and as against one who did not do the work and therefore it cannot be succeed with interrogation of that matter. Then make AI use explicit and reflective. So rather than banning AI, require students to declare how they use it, critique its output, and so you turn the threat into an assessed skill in terms of AI literacy. Then reward creation and judgment over reproduction. So you ask students to make, decide, defend a proposal, a design, a recommendation, rather than to summarize what is already known, right? So there are 3 link components if we are to retain the SBA and want to rebuild it around a structure that embodies those principles. One is the applied project, a real world task that requires a student to apply the subject to a situation in their own community or country and to produce an artifact, whether it's a dossier, a model, a plan, a campaign, a solution of their own making. So in English, for example, one of the things could be, somebody has a new product they want to sell and they're having problems marketing it. What can you do to design a marketing campaign for them, right? Now, how you did, okay, so let's even give some benefit of the doubt and say students may tend to use AI to help design the campaign. But then you have to look at what are then you interrogate them around things like what are the characteristics of the community or the audience that you're trying to reach? Why is this particular technique being used to reach them? Are there alternative models? That is where the Viva or the interview process can get to the bottom of how authentic that product is, right? So there's a lot of, I think a lot more thinking has to be done by C.X.C. about the approach to this thing, and in fact in what they're attempting to do by leaving the SBAs to the so-called practical subjects and relegating the non-practical subjects, you are actually going to deepen a serious fault line in our education system, that divide between academic and non-academic subjects. And we need to think more creatively about the solutions to those problems. When I was registrar, one of the things we did, for example, in the English paper, there's a trigger statement that's given. So you may say, I walked into the room and to my surprise, and the students have to take that opening sentence and create a story in the exam about that, right? Mm-hmm. We selected, and every year an award was given. I don't know if it's still done, but every year the top essay coming out of that stimulus statement was given an award. And we selected over the last 20 years or so, we published a booklet, you can find it on Amazon, that gives the essays of the last 20 years that got the top award in English for that stimulus statement. And we asked students a number of questions. Tell us what happened when you sat in the exam room and you read that stimulus phrase. What went through your mind and what led you to design the response in the way you designed it? Then the other question we asked them, how did winning the top award impact your life? This is English. And you would not be surprised to learn that most of those students who got this top award over that preceding 20 years are now in some area where English is essential to their profession. They either in the media, they into journalism, they into advertising, all of that stuff, all related to the effective use of language. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. I mean, and as former registrar, and I certainly appreciate the resources that you're asking for and suggesting be applied in order to ensure that the SBAs are meaningful. Does C.X.C and the various ministries of education have the resources to be able to deliver on this? So, for example, introducing a Viva. I know, like the languages, so French, Spanish, there's an oral, and that has to be examined. But apart from going out into community to defend through a Viva, or do the ministries of education, the schools, have the resources in order to do this and for it to be effective?
No, we're not asking for any extraordinary or new resources to be provided to communities. All I'm saying is the process involved, right, would involve feedback from the persons. In other words, the authentication of what is presented as the SBA would require some testimony from the persons that they interacted with, right? So, for example, as I said earlier, in mathematics, you can model a real local problem, whether it's a bus route efficiency, a water catchment budget, small business pricing, hurricane risk statistics for your district, but anything that uses data that the student would have to gather, and on the basis of that data, make a decision. Now, what that would require is statistics and IT, so spreadsheets, some kind of visualization. AI cannot collect that local data or justify the modeling assumptions in the student's own defense. In English, you can produce a multi-genre portfolio responding to a local issue. So an original piece, a rhetorical analysis of a real regional media on an issue, a reflective commentary on your own drafting choices. I give the example of what was already being done in the English paper with a stimulus statement. Right? And again, what are the resources required? Almost every child has some kind of digital media at their disposal, cell phones, tablets, whatever, right? Digital media, you could do a podcast or short film of a creative piece, plus with engaging on social studies issues, you can draft oral discussions of the authority, the choices that expose ghost-written work. In Caribbean history, a whole theme for SBAs in Caribbean history could be presenting our past. So a heritage site dossier. Think of all the heritage sites in Grenada and challenging students to visit the sites, do additional research on those sites, and argue for a reinterpretation of the site. And that's where you can add to that interdisciplinary thing like digital media reconstructions, interactive maps, visual arts requiring a physical site visit, original photos, and some personal interpretive stance on the historical site. You can maybe even combine that with some work in the creative arts, design a drama piece that dramatizes the work of the historical episode at that site. You know, so I think it's a matter of thinking through carefully how we preserve the essence of what the SBA is supposed to be, because you cannot replace that application of knowledge in real life by what is being proposed there.
Okay. I noticed that on a release, well, certainly a Facebook posting today, there were some subjects listed as increased use of SBAs, and the traditional science subjects were included: biology, chemistry, physics. Any idea as to what that means? Because I couldn't find what that meant. Is it that the practical component or the SBA component was going to be a larger percentage of the final exam results? And if that is true, is there going to be any rearranging as to the how the marks are proportioned for paper 1 and paper 2, your multiple choice?
Well, I haven't seen that, so I can't respond to that. But what I can tell you, whatever the interpretation of that is, if the idea is for the subjects that have SBAs, you're going to increase the proportion and the value of the SBAs, then you're creating a different problem, because now you're creating a bigger distinction between those so-called practical subjects and then the more quote-unquote academic subjects. And I predict that over time what will happen, you'll find those who are in the science stream or the practical application subjects will come out better rounded students, more critically minded in the mastery of their discipline or their science, versus those who are so-called in the academic stream. And it is precisely in those areas that you need equity of critical thinking and capacity to digest knowledge and to create new knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much. Viewers and listeners, it's time for our final break, so we'll take that break, and when we come back, you certainly can weigh in with your own thoughts on the issue. 440-1252, that will be the number to call.
Asian Spa and Wellness Cafe, nestled in the serene surroundings of Le Phare Bleu, Calivini Bay, St. George, is the perfect spot to unwind and relax after a stressful event or when you wish to spoil yourself in the most comfortable and relaxing atmosphere. They offer many different massage modalities, including thigh hammer, washer and cupping, signature thigh deep tissue massage, also facials to depuff and tighten pores, deep cleanse full body, hair and nail treatments and more. Take a walk down to the cafe for authentic Thai breakfasts and delicious traditional dishes. Choose from our special mixed drinks, both hot and cold. Opens daily. Visit Asian Spa and Wellness Cafe today, Le Phare Bleu, Calivini Bay, St. George, because you will not regret you did.
Still standing in line? There's a faster way. You can now make a payment directly to Grenlec, anytime, anywhere. Just visit myaccount.grenlec.com. Your payment goes through instantly and your account updates right away. Sign up today and put the power in your hands.
You may not always have your ATM card on you, but that shouldn't stop you from accessing your money. With Republic Bank's cardless cash service, you can withdraw cash from any ATM without using your debit card. It's simple to use. Just log into your Republic Bank app, select cardless cash, enter the amount you need and generate the one-time code. At the ATM, enter your code, confirm your details and you're done. No card needed. It's useful when you left your wallet behind and when you need to send cash to someone else securely. With cardless cash, you stay in control and in touch with your money wherever you are. Republic Bank, ready for life, every step.
Kids Planet, located at number 3 NIS Complex, specializes in everything for your children from newly born and upward. At Kids Planet, you will find clothing, school bags, hair accessories, sandals, shoes, strollers, car seats, bathtubs, baby bags, swings, walkers, playpens, and many more. So what are you waiting for? Hurry on down to Kids Planet and find what you have been looking for. Or call them on 444-3996 or 533-3996.
This Emancipation Weekend, Freedom Takes the Sea. The Media Workers Association of Grenada invites you aboard Unscripted, the Freedom Edition. Friday, July 31st. Step into an unforgettable night of music, vibes, culture, and connection aboard the ultimate summer cruise experience. Meet your favorite media personalities, party under the stars, and celebrate freedom the unscripted way aboard the Ecstasy. Boarding is at 7 p.m., sailing at 8 p.m. Dress code Freedom Chic. Bold, stylish, unapologetically you. Tickets are limited and going fast. Get your tickets online at GoToFet and at recognized ticket outlets. Unscripted, the Freedom Edition, because the best stories are the ones you never planned.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners. We're looking at C.X.C's new assessment model, inclusive the elimination of SBAs for some subjects. Then, what is Grenada's approach? C.X.C say no SBAs in CAPE 2027. C.C.C, there's a little bit of flexibility 2027, but 2028 so it's actually, none for some of the subjects.
Right. So C.C.C begins in 2027. CAPE in C.C.C begins in 2028. CAPE right. in 2027. Right. Of course, we have started. Because we have started to sensitize, we have started to prepare teachers. We have sent out the circulars, we have done the professional development so that the teachers are able to gain the knowledge of how the changes would go about and what is expected of them. We've also publicized so that the entire society is aware, so parents are aware. Students can become aware too through the media, and we expect that the teachers and the principals and so would also fill them in on those changes. By 2027, we expect that the schools would have full implementation.
What would inform a school's decision in your mind? With CAPE, there's no choice. CAPE is 2027, right. No SBAs in those subjects. But what would inform a school's decision in 2027 at the C.C.C level to decide no SBA or not? Or would it be a mixed model? Some students do the 032 and others do the SBAs?
Well, we may have situations where teachers, because we've had that teachers have complained a lot about the work that they have to do. We've had that. So we may just have situations of that where we have quite a lot to be done with the students to get them to the point of full preparations, full...
so the complaint has been the work that teachers have to do to get proper SBAs. So some teachers, you're saying, welcome the paper 032. Some teachers may
very well welcome the paper. We haven't done any research as yet internally to determine, since the pronouncement has been made. But over the years, we've been getting those complaints of teachers having so much to do to get the students to get the product.
But is that a resource issue? Probably we need more teachers. Or is it, and can it compromise the experiential learning that both yourself and Didacus spoke about as being so very important to internalize the material and become an applier upon graduation as opposed to a regurgitator for an examination? So we do not, and that's what we were thinking. Our thinking, the Ministry of Education view is that the removal of the SBA should not compromise the experiential learning, because students should be preparing for life and not for the exam. But is this a practical approach? I mean, do teachers do anything, in reality I'm talking about, do teachers do anything more than what is going to be examined? Do students embrace anything more than what is going to be examined? I mean, what is the reality? Well, teachers do a lot more. We cannot not accept that fact that teachers do a lot more than just prepare students for exams. So we encourage the teachers to continue doing it, to increase the occurrences of that. We may have a few instances where we have that situation where, because there is a syllabus and there is a time frame, teachers focus mainly on that syllabus to get it completed within the time frame. Right. Yeah. So there are instances of that. But generally, we must say, and we always have to be thankful to our teaching service, that they are doing a wonderful job.
in terms of preparing our students for life.
Okay.
So we encourage them to continue to do that, and we would continue to give the support that we need to give as we transition into this 2027 and 2028.
Okay. Didacus, from what I have seen, paper 032 allows for, and this is the claim, testing under exam conditions and the use of exam notes, which preserves reflective assessment. What are your thoughts? And I was deliberately quoting from the C.X.C release.
Well, I did say earlier that, you know, this proposed solution does not in any way exorcise AI from the thing, because you give students a topic, you give them, they know the topic that they're going to be examining on, they can use the AI to prepare the notes that they come into the exam with and respond accordingly.
Okay.
And I think, you know, I listened carefully to what Dianne is saying. There's a contradiction between preparing for exams and preparing for life. Because ironically, you can't be preparing for, so fixated on preparing for exams and believe that that is preparation for life. Regurgitating something that you have learned from a textbook is a very different thing from asking you to apply it in your community, in everyday life, that represents an application of knowledge in a creative way to a challenge or an opportunity in your community or in your family, in your area, that represents the application of knowledge.
Okay, because if I can, we have a caller online. Good evening, caller, welcome. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, we're hearing you.
Hello?
We're hearing you, go ahead.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening. This is a question for Dr. Didacus Jules. Yes, I have a question for Dr.
Just go ahead, please. Just go ahead. We're hearing you. Just go ahead.
Right, Dr. Jules, it's nice to hear you on the program tonight. Yes. I remember you were the days when you were involved in education in Grenada as a young, slim, vibrant guy. Right. The question is, how do you compare in the 1970s when a student got six GCE subjects, and went on to do advanced level after that? And today you have students leaving with 13 subjects. How do you compare the competence in these two scenarios?
All right, thank you very much. Didacus,
yeah, sure. I get the gist of his question. Again, it speaks to what I see as some of the fundamental contradictions that continue in our education system, because we become so fixated. And that was something, as a registrar of C.X.C, I had many arguments with other educators as well as with parents about the notion, for example, in some of the bigger C.X.C territories of people doing 13 subjects, 20 subjects is ridiculous, frankly, right? And it's all about bragging rights to say my child did 20 subjects and, got, several ones or twos or so. Okay, that's a mark of admittedly some brilliance. But the question is that really necessary? And how does one move on from there? And it would be an interesting thing to track some of those students to see where has that taken them in life, and how have they fed in the professions that they undertook. education is more and more being treated as if it is a competition, right? We know that students learn at different rates. It's like the devil take the hindmost, because the focus, all the applause, the recognition goes to those who sit large numbers of subjects and score high grades in those subjects. Now, I'm not saying that we should curb that, because there was a big debate in C.X.C in my time as to whether there should be any limitation on that. No, you don't put limits on people's ambition and possibilities. But at the same time, one has to guard against this thing becoming a trend where it becomes a competition that my child must do so much of, must do so many subjects in order for them to be recognized.
Okay. I'm going back to paper 032, and the ability to go in with notes. Does that make it easier on the student or more difficult? So, you'll be aware of the open book concept in examinations. Does that make it any easier?
Okay, but it's ridiculous, frankly, in my view, and here's why. You are saying that you should not, you're getting rid of the SBAs because you figure that students are using AI to design their SBAs. Let's take that as a possibility. Okay, so that's the solution now, is that you're going to do a paper, you're going to have an invigilated exam where students are given the topic a month or whatever period they said in advance. You then have to research that topic, prepare the topic, come into the exam room to be moderated and questioned about it. And you can bring in your notes from the research you would have done to answer the question. How does that prevent the use of AI? Explain that to me.
Mm-hmm. Right. And is this a case where somebody's actually doing two paper twos?
I frankly don't get it.
Okay. Thoughts, Dianne?
Okay, so I just want to go back a bit to, because Didacus has said it several times, that we are moving away from giving students the opportunity to do projects and real life opportunities and so. And we are of the view that the removal of this SBA does not eliminate the opportunities for students to do real life activities. These things are built in, and that's what we encourage our teachers to continue to do. And that's what we will ensure is being done, that the students will be given opportunities still. It is part of what teachers do.
How would you monitor this? I'm deliberately asking this because earlier on you said that some teachers bemoan the fact that they have to run after students for the practical component, etc. for the SBAs.
You want to fulfill that.
I'm with you.
Yes.
And therefore the question is, how will a Ministry of Education that is removed from the school, I know you have DEOs, etc.
Yeah, we have DEOs.
How will you ensure that the teachers are actually enforcing this practicum component that you recognize is essential, but no longer being assessed upon and therefore no longer mandatory?
Right. So we also have, apart from DEOs, we have curriculum support officers, and they monitor teaching also. As a matter of fact, they are the ones who go in and give the support to the teachers for instruction. And so they will be used. But teachers have to continue because the students will have to use those things. Even with the paper 032, the preparation is not just the month before. The preparation has to be done way in advance. They will get the topics the month before, and if you do not know the topic that you're going to get way in advance, then you have to be doing all of those different areas in preparation for anything that will come. When you get it in a month in advance, then you can zero in your focus mainly on that.
But to the Didacus points, if it's AI you're using, you just put it into AI.
Well,
you more than focus on it because trust me, AI will give you every response.
Supposing that there will be structures in place to mitigate against the use of the AI, to regurgitate whatever AI gives, and just use your critical thinking skills, your reasoning skills, and so on.
Okay. We have another caller online, so let's take that call. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Yeah, good night to Colin, and good night to Dr. Jeffrey and to Dr. Jules. I remember I was at a Caribbean Assemblies people meeting in Barbados, I think in 2009, and I asked Dr. At that time he was still with C.X.C, and I asked him about a question related to AI in terms of how it's being integrated in the Caribbean, and I asked him that question against the backdrop of what was happening in Singapore, and I think he did answer it truthfully. Now, my question is that how are we going to help people to understand that AI is something that we have to embrace, but embrace it in a way that does not control us, that does not lose our creativity or or genius, and so on, rather than have this fear that people seem to prevail and even probably don't even want their children to be engaged in AI. AI is something that we have to know how to manage, but without it allowing it to manage us. So can you respond to that, Doctor? Thank you.
I'll give Dr. Jules first bite, and then I'll have the CEO respond. How do we embrace AI responsibly? How do we go about ensuring that that is done?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the use of AI, the horse has bolted the stable. You can't prevent the use of AI. It will happen whether you like it or not. The question, therefore, is how does one, which is what the caller is asking, how does one use it responsibly? And the responsible use of it is by challenging students to apply knowledge in a way that they cannot just regurgitate what AI presents, because AI has its own limitations. If I live in La Digue and I'm doing a project on La Digue, you think AI, unless the way I frame my question to AI is so broad and general, it will make assumptions about life in La Digue and give me a response that may look generally true, but may not be authentic in the sense of display a real knowledge and in-depth understanding, a lived experience of life in La Digue, right? Whether we're talking accounts, business in La Digue, environment, weather, agriculture, whatever aspect of life in my community. And that's simply what I'm saying, that the SBAs are meant to be the application of knowledge in whatever the subject is in some area of life, or doing deeper research that shows that you are applying the knowledge in certain areas related to life in your community or the professions that are impacted by the subject that you undertake in the SBA. So, there are 1,001 creative ways that we can reinvent this SBA. Let me again give some examples. Mathematics. You can model a real local problem, the bus routes efficiency. How often are the buses servicing, a community in my area? A water catchment budget, small business pricing, hurricane risk statistics from the district. And that's using data that the student has to gather. So AI can give them that data. Then in English, for example, you have a multi-genre portfolio that could respond to a local issue, an original piece, a rhetorical analysis of real regional media on the issue, a reflective commentary on your own drafting choices. And then you can enrich that with cross-subject work, like in digital media, doing a podcast or a short film of the creative piece. You can add to that social studies dimensions of the subject matter that you're looking at. then you can, in Caribbean history, a theme could be present in our past. So a heritage site dossier, visiting, researching, arguing for reinterpretations of a real site. And again, digital media can come in useful. A lot of our students are into digital media. They're using, okay, in that case, for example, is there anything wrong with using AI to design a song that you imagine would be a Carib song of rebellion against invasion? Nothing wrong with that. You know, I mean, let's really grapple with the thing, because it means now you're making, if students have to use AI, then they have to use it in a way that assists with the deepening of local knowledge, right? And the production of something that adds value to their knowledge as well as to the product of their knowledge.
Okay. Dan, what type of support does our local registrar from C.X.C get to grapple? Right? There's the educational campaign, but you know, the point person in Grenada will be the registrar. What type of support is there to ensure that smooth transition? Okay, so let me just go back to agreeing that we cannot get away from the AI. Something else may come as we advance in technology. But for the time being, we have the AI. What we want to mitigate against is the irresponsible use of the AI for reproducing knowledge and, you know, like the reckless representation of your product, where you use AI and it's not admitted that it's AI and so on. So the registrar is the one responsible for the C.X.C exams really, right? For the external exams. Internally, we have our examination unit. Right. So the registrar is usually in constant engagement with C.X.C. So C.X.C will be doing the regular training of the information sharing with our registrar, who would then push down whatever it is to the various, well, through the systems that we have in place at the Ministry of Education, of course, so that the schools, the principals, the teachers, the students, the parents are aware of what has to take place. And continue to reiterate that our ministry is committed to continued support to our teachers, our students, and even our parents as we transition into the removal of the SBAs in specific subject areas. We do not want to lose the authentic learning opportunities. And we do not believe that they will be lost because SBA is removed. So we would continue to train our teachers, to give them the support that they need in order to use those authentic opportunities and experiences for our students, so that our students can continue to be well developed and they would be able to function out there. We're almost out of time, so Didacus, just your closing comments, but before your closing comments, where does the economics of C.X.C fall into this? Are we presenting a scenario where, because there is an additional paper, a paper that has to be graded, there will therefore be additional costs, and hence we can see within a year or two the subject costs to the parent increases? Is there any worry that this particular decision has an economic impact that can negatively affect our citizens in the region? If you can respond to that and your closing comments on this theme.
Well, I'm frankly not able to respond to that because I'm not inside of C.X.C. One would hope that that analysis would have been done before making those decisions. I can't see how adding another paper is not going to add to the cost of doing the exam. The SBAs, as I've proposed them, the alternative to that is not going to mean any additional costs to certainly the parents for the work to be done in that way, for the SBAs to be conducted in that manner. And in fact, I see many educational advantages in taking that approach. I simply don't understand how, I frankly don't understand how this proposed solution is going to really represents an answer to the problems that we face.
All right, is that your last word?
Yes, it is.
All right. Dan, your last word and closing comments.
Okay, so I just want to give the teachers, the students, the parents, the reassurance that our ministry will be supportive of this transition, and we would ensure, because we support the removal of the SBA in certain subject areas at this point in time, and we are going to continue to give the support to the stakeholders to ensure that it is implemented effectively. But at the same time, we are not closed to discussions and contributing to those discussions so that we can move into the direction that Didacus has proposed, because there are lots of great points. Dr. Jules is a very well-known and respected educator in the region. He does his research, and a lot of what he has presented are foolproofed. However, at this point, we believe that the removal is well in place, and we would continue to support it until we get another change. And we will contribute to whatever change that will come, because we believe that there must be continued discussions. Assessments will continue to evolve. Changes are inevitable, so we cannot get away from that. And we are quite prepared to continue to make our contributions, and most importantly, to continue to have structures in place so that we maintain a quality education system. We prepare our citizens to be effective, ideal Grenadian citizens and ideal Caribbean citizens. And I believe we can continue to do that even with the removal of the SBA, unlike what Dr. Jules.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dianne, Abel-Jeffrey.
And then I'm really tempted to ask you a question. If you see a car going over a cliff, what do you do? Do you say, well, because we're on that course already, we need to keep on that course, at least for the time being?
You're asking me that question, Doc? Doc, that's for me?
Yes, that's a question I'm asking you.
Well, I'll answer. I know I would.
Because I hear you acknowledging the logic of what I'm saying. But at the same time saying, well, for the time being, as if we have no choice. We always have choices. And the question is to interrogate what are the choices that are most feasible, affordable. And that's what we
believe, that this choice is the most feasible at this time.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Dr. Dianne, Abel-Jeffrey, Dr. Didacus, Jules, thank you very much for sharing on this impactful subject, and for you, viewers and listeners, for being a part of this evening's program as we looked at the changes made, well, soon to be implemented by C.X.C. in terms of the use of SBAs in their assessments. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. I would tell you, take good care of yourselves. We do have a show next week, Monday, because August Monday, or the first Monday in August, is no longer a public holiday. We celebrate Emancipation Day on August 1st, which is Saturday. But I look forward, therefore, to being with you in the next 6 days, 22.5 hours. Take good care, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Godspeed.